18, 19, once they realize or need to realize that BMX is a piece of the puzzle, but it's not the entire puzzle. This is the exact kind of thing they're going to need to know. I mean, especially in the current climate, Jesus fuck. If 2% of them ever get any sort of paycheck, they're going to be lucky. And if 1% ever gets a paycheck they can live on, they're going to be lucky. Maybe that number 5-10 years ago was 5%, maybe something like that. But man, I mean, they got to realize that if their minds are dedicated to this kind of counterculture, there's got to be a backup plan, you know?
Hey, welcome to episode 4 of the Codec Projects podcast. For this episode, I'm talking to Greg Walsh of Wolf Brigade Gym. Even though Greg and I are both about the same age, from the Northeast, into BMX, and we both sang in hardcore bands, I don't think we actually truly crossed paths until about 2000 in Southern California. Greg was working at Primo at the time as the team manager and brand manager, and I was working at 411 as their DVD production guy. We ran into each other at the Van skatepark one night, and we instantly became friends. A few days later, when I was offered the dream job of starting 411 BMX, Greg was my first call. He hooked me up with Robbie at Fit Bike Company and has done countless other things to help me out over the years. He's always working on some new project or business venture, and is truly one of the most interesting people I know. Greg was an obvious first-round draft pick for Don't Stand in Line, and I'm truly grateful he signed up.
I was listening to... Man, of all things, someone brought up a really interesting story about Ani DeFranco the other day, and it reminded me that, like, when I was a kid, there was a club here called Jazzberries, and we as kids we would do security in quotes at Jazzberries when Ani DeFranco would play, and then we would do that in trade for rental the next Sunday, and we'd do shows, metal hardcore shows there, you know,
right.
And so I was listening to this one record that I remembered of hers, and one of the lines was great, and it was basically saying, like, people of my generation wouldn't be caught dead working for the man. Trouble is, you got to have yourself an alternate plan. And holy fuck, man, what a sharp thought, what a sharp lyric. Right. You know, nobody wants to work for the man, but you know, that's not just a plug and play situation. You know.
yeah. You need a little forethought.
Anyway, but yeah.
But no, that's spot on. The thing is, this project's weird. I have a hard, like, it's not weird in a bad way. It's weird in a good way. But, like, I have a hard time describing it a lot of times because it's so different. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little self-help. It's a little action sports. It's a little just fuck you punk rock. It's a, but it's kind of just everything that I like melded into one thing, and then.
And man, honestly, of course I couldn't agree more. And I also think that it has an extremely strong, independent thinking, critical thinking, undercurrent to it. And I think that is what ties it to anyone that isn't action sports or hardcore.
Right. And the thing is, you guys said a lot of the stuff and more, way more, but a lot of things that I had been thinking, but like I didn't have the way to say it. I couldn't verbalize it nearly as well as you. And plus, who wants to watch me sit down and spit all that shit out? So
well, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I know what you mean. Yep. Well, yeah. I mean, ultimately, I think if someone isn't into the aspect of action sports, someone isn't into the culture of music, a lot of people right now are retooling their entire outlook on what they're going to do next and their drive and their motivation. And I think the timing is fucking perfect.
It's almost like I planned it.
I mean, truly, like if you organize this pandemic, I'm going to be pretty pissed. But
all right, we're talking with Greg Walsh of Wolf Brigade Gym. Greg, for those that might not know, just you want to give us just a brief intro about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. As brief as it can be. I've been involved in counterculture for a really long time, and the ways that I'm working within it currently is I run a strength and conditioning brand that's headquartered in Rochester, New York. We have several kind of satellite places around the country, and then one in Toronto, but it's called Wolf Brigade. Our headquarters are here in Rochester, where I'm from. I lived in Long Beach, California for a long time, both to work in strength and conditioning and martial arts and also in BMX, and moved back to Rochester in the middle of 2008. And I've been here running Wolf Brigade since. We run classes. I do a bunch of private training. I do a bunch of consulting, and then we make a few really unique kind of mostly handmade fitness tools.
Awesome. Yeah. So this gets a little weird because I obviously know a lot of these answers, but coming from like as a BMX kid, like BMX and like hardcore kid, did you ever think that you would be spending so much time in a gym?
I mean, I think that's a question I'll never get sick of answering. Absolutely not. If the version of me now were to talk to the 19-year-old or even 20-year-old version of me that was involved in martial arts but not at all in strength and conditioning and really didn't like that kind of culture at all, that kid would be pretty surprised. But the reason that I think it works is because I've kept the elements of counterculture that I value the most. The all-inclusiveness, the detail orientation, the aesthetic, kind of, like the hard-minded, indignant perspectives I've brought with me from hardcore and BMX. Those things taught me well, man. When it comes to independent culture, I just really don't think there's any better teachers than independent music and action sports. And so I knew how to run a tiny micro business. I knew how to struggle and fall down and get up. I knew a lot of things that a lot of people didn't coming into this stuff. And it let me come into strength and conditioning with some pretty interesting perspectives and also a pretty clean slate. Like I had no preconceived notions about what needed to happen. I was basing things on fact. I was basing things on experience and provability. And a lot of times when people get into, whether it be strength training or fitness training or even, personal training or kind of some more simple stuff, there's a playbook that they're within, and I never had that because I didn't care. It wasn't a culture that I was trying to impress the people within. I just wanted to help people, and realistically, I wanted to help BMXers and martial artists improve themselves and stay strong and be able to do what they love to do better and longer.
So, what sparked you to get more into fitness?
Geez, well, I mean. BMX is fun, but not necessarily healthy for your body. Martial arts are fun, but not necessarily healthy for your body. And as I was riding BMX and then transitioning from more traditional martial arts to Muay Thai and grappling, catch wrestling, I started realizing that I needed to be stronger. I needed to be more durable in ways that things like BMX had broken down a little bit. And that I didn't want to do it in a real conventional, jockey gym type way. And geez, I was just, man, I was so lucky. In 2003, I walked into the right gym in Long Beach, and it was just, it fit like a glove. And I was there every day until I moved back to New York.
Wow. 2003. So that lines up because that's 2003 is when I moved back from California. To New England. Yep. And the last time I saw you, like, I know you were doing jiu-jitsu, but it wasn't anything like when I saw you a year and a half ago. So
the martial arts thread was earlier than that, and even started back when I was still in Rochester before I moved to California. But then in the early 2000s, I kind of transitioned from like Kempo karate, good Kempo karate. My instructor, Carlos Macias, was phenomenal, and he was learning to grapple at the time too. So we got a lot of practice in together with that stuff. But then once I got more into jiu-jitsu and once I got more into kickboxing, geez, the physical shortcomings really just start to jump out when you get into the more combat-oriented martial arts. And that's kind of when we knew each other for sure. And then, as you left is really when things started to ramp up and man, I just haven't looked back since. I don't think I'll ever love fitness as an industry, that's for sure. But I'm very proud of what we're able to do, and we've helped an enormous amount of really great people.
That's awesome. Do you see like what connection do you see between punk and hardcore and BMX? But what connection do you see between those things and entrepreneurship and even fitness, I guess? Like, how do you see those things kind of gelling together?
Well,
if at all.
I mean, in a lot of the same ways as you, when you grow up in unconventional ways, your mind works in unconventional ways, knowing that in order to pull off a show, I was going to have to trick 3 people, pay a bunch of other people that were scary, and then pull something off at the end of that day. Man, you learn a lot of lessons about what you want to do for a living and what you don't. And the plug and play type job scenario just wasn't really ever on the table for me. When I moved to California, it was for a great job at a bike company, and I squeezed that as hard as I possibly could. We worked with a ton of great companies. You know, a lot of the work I did was a launch pad for some companies that are just some of the most well-respected companies in the history of BMX, and I'm very proud of that. But even within that framework, you know, it was a much larger company. BMX was a small division of it, and I tricked them at every turn in order to help BMXers, in order to help smaller brands and things like that. And I never felt the slightest bit bad about that, because ultimately it ended up making them money too. But if I had a paint by numbers approach, I would have done okay at that job. Because I didn't, I believe I did quite an excellent job at that job, and you know, a lot of brands and a lot of companies that I really respect benefited from that. And I think that all comes from hardcore and action sports. You can't watch, you know, some of the early bands that we had the good luck to see. You can't watch that unfold, and you can't book shows, and you can't book tours on a phone dialer and drive hundreds and hundreds of miles for maybe nothing. And man, it would be impossible to shake those types of mindsets and attitudes. In my opinion, you know, I know some people leave that stuff behind, but that stuff taught me well.
That's awesome. That reminds me of kind of, I heard a line the other day, and I can't remember who said it. It was someone quoting someone else, but I think it was, and this is, you know, paraphrased, but it was something to the effect of, "The obstacle is the way," you know, which is kind of exactly the way I feel about, you know, when you come up skateboarding or in riding BMX or snowboarding or anything like that, think about what you're spending your time doing. You're looking for an obstacle, and mostly to propel you forward, up and over. And a lot of times, you know, you're going to go much further if you hit that obstacle. Sometimes you'll crash and burn, but you know, the way, if you just go around it, that's usually not going to get you anywhere, you know?
Well, you know, it's true. And then, I mean, I guess the kind of hilarious fact that either makes us stupid or smart is that we're always looking for the next more challenging obstacle.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. You know, the curb cut is fun, but once the curb cut runs out of juice, then you're looking for the next thing. And realistically, it's, you know, for me, it's, you know, it's not like some adrenaline junkie thing. It's just that I really like the strategic element of doing things a little bit differently, but for a reason. And with strength and conditioning, I mean, I think that has that very simple mindset has allowed me to develop into something extremely unique. I'm an extremely thorough and effective trainer, and I believe I can improve anyone walking the earth physically with the stuff that we've developed.
That's awesome. I wanted to go back a little bit for a second. Are you okay? Would you rather not say the name of the company you were working at in Long Beach?
Oh, no, Primo and Tip Plus. I don't have any. There's no secrets there.
Okay.
It's a well-known fact that I moved out there in 1999 to work there. Some of the people that had brought me out there that are still good friends of mine splintered off not long after that, and I ended up running that place for quite a while. And man, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was going to ask, any of those things that you had to go around and secretly do, like, I mean, do you have any stories about those that you could share, or
well, sure.
Anything in particular?
I mean, so a lot of times small brands needed influx of cash to grow, and a lot of the unconventional ways that we did that is I would kind of create invoices for products that didn't yet exist so that I could get money from this giant company to give to the smaller companies so that they could start building products or frames or build their foundations or whatever. If a rider needed to travel and there was no money in the budget and I couldn't squeeze it out, I would manufacture some sort of photo contingency. I know for a fact at least several occasions, and supreme respect to both of these people, I put Chris Stauffer's head on Dave Mira's body and got him paid some money.
Oh man,
I don't have the slightest qualms about that, because ultimately it ended up making everybody money. It ended up making Primo and Tip Plus money, ended up making the riders money. A lot of people grew. And amidst that, there was definitely negativity. I mean, that period of time was extremely powerful and positive, but it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way too. The companies that we were working with there grew extremely fast under the leadership we had put in there, and that rubbed some people the wrong way. And even to this point, I don't care about that. I made some mistakes. There's a couple mistakes that still kind of haunt me with how I treated some small brands that we worked with, but I don't know. I tried as hard as I could. We worked with some really challenging parameters and got a lot of cool shit done. And ultimately the industry grew for it. The independent side of the industry grew for it. And that was my goal. That was my goal the entire time. I had worked in BMX prior to working at Primo and Tip, and I knew that the next step was to find a bigger company to leverage some of that knowledge.
I mean, obviously, like we knew each other for a while, and I know you've seen some of my work and stuff, but I knew that you would be a perfect fit for whatever the hell it was that I was thinking of doing, even though I didn't really know what it was. So like, I guess the point is, when I approached you with the project, like, what did you think? Because like I just said, I really didn't even know what it was.
Man, first of all, as much as you may not think it, that's a really cool compliment. Secondly, to your credit, knowing what you had done, seeing your previous work, knowing of your band, hanging out with you in California, you could have approached me with almost anything and I would have backed it 100%. And that's not lip service. That's just, there's a short list of people that would apply to. And
thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, you earned it. And once you did approach me with the project and the people, I was sold immediately. I mean, for all of our differences, and there are some significant ones, everyone within this project has done something that I believe is truly, truly notable and exceptional. And an interesting thread that you and I have talked about, but that we haven't talked to other people about yet, is that, Crandall and I have worked together for, I mean, like quite literally since we were kids. And when I say
Right.
Work together, I mean every iteration of smashing things we shouldn't have, setting shit on fire, building brands, running events. And then Chris from Bridge 9 is someone that in some of our earliest events, also in the early 2000s, we ran some really good BMX bike contests called La Revolution. As soon as we launched those, I contacted Chris because I knew early on about Bridge 9 and I just respected it, man. It was cool. It looked good. It was marketed well. I loved all the bands he was putting out. And so he was one of the first people I contacted to sponsor that event. You mentioned that in that phenomenal write-up you made on the internet about us. But that was something that when all this came together again, I was like, man, you got to be kidding me. I'm going to get to actually dip my toes in the water with these guys in a real way. It was exciting. It was really exciting. And then Sonny, I mean, as someone that's watched hardcore for, I mean, really just a long time. I got into things when I was young. To watch some of the stuff that I wasn't able to see in person be filmed with like, man, just care and feeling and quality. I mean, he and I were never friends. We never really knew each other. We've still only spoken just a small amount of times, but man, that is not easy work. So, and anyway, I respected everyone involved. You could have brought me almost anything and I would have done it. So it was a great fit. Even if the people that you brought to the table weren't a great fit, do you do you remember when we were in California and we were going to see Madball? The show got moved to what I believe was like a strip club and a Mexican restaurant in like East Los Angeles.
I didn't remember that at all until you just mentioned it, but yeah, yes.
So like what I'm remembering is you and me and my brother and I believe our friend Jay Marriott in my minivan driving to a place in East LA that I'm relatively sure I would not go again, that had a giant nacho machine, stripper poles, and Madball.
Yeah, that's...
So anyway, I remembered that the other day, and I was hoping there would be an opportunity to bring it up because I mean it would be hard to remember a weirder show than that.
Well, that's definitely a weird combination of things that I think worked out.
It did. It worked out great.
Oh man, I didn't remember that at all.
Other than those that ate the nachos, I imagine that might not have been a good idea.
What is Jay? I don't know if this is even for the podcast. But what is Jay up to? Any?
I'm sure something extremely talented and amazing. Yeah, that was a sharp, talented guy. Yep.
I'd love to connect with that guy again.
Yep.
So, like, I'm pretty sure we filmed in April of last year? Or was that 3?
Yeah.
Seems like so long ago.
Or was that 7 years ago? There's really no way to tell.
There really isn't. After filming Wrapped, what were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I knew kind of where the project was going based on knowing a lot about the people involved. The similarities we all have is that we've all kind of clawed and scraped and figured out ways to get done what we needed to get done. So I mean, there was an obviousness to it in terms of how those dots would connect. But then the unique part was I had no idea what they were going to say. There's parts of their stories, each of them, even though I've known Crandall for 25 years, like there was parts of his story that are in the documentary that I didn't know. Certainly parts of Chris's and definitely parts of Sonny's. But I was just as excited to see it as hopefully, I mean, people that aren't involved that will be. I don't know. I'm a fan of it as much as I am a participant, I guess.
That's awesome. So obviously, I think you could probably relate to a lot of what they were saying. Was there anything in particular that stuck out that was from any of the guys that, really struck home to you?
I mean, Crandall's simple sentence of struggling and possibly sucking at something you believe in versus just living a boring life. I mean, I don't necessarily know if the word I would have used is boring, but that concept is one that I think about these days on a daily basis. And then with Chris, some of the stories that he kind of downplayed, but I thought had a lot of a real value is even just some of the stuff that he did that, because his demeanor is kind of neutral and stuff, but some of the stuff he did to pull off some of the stuff that really made him stand out in those earlier days.
Fucking stunts, like straight up stunts.
It's stunts, like legitimately stuff that like was of legend even then. I mean, I think I mentioned in maybe a post that I had made that I had heard early on about that bridge painting in Boston, and I mean, that was real. Like I had heard about that soon after it happened. And I was like, man, are you fucking kidding me? Like I'd been to Boston. I know what that bridge was. I was like, dude was up there painting I mean,
3 a.m.
That was the kind of great stuff that, and as well as I do at that time in that era, that's the stuff that thinned the herd. I mean, you were willing to go down in flames for this shit or you weren't.
Right.
And the people that weren't, where are they now? They're gone. And the people that were, that they're here. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, he's still doing that shit to this day. Like
that's what I mean.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan.
In the docu, there's a good section about the maces and how those came about and stuff. Do you want to just talk about that a little bit? Like I think that's super interesting.
Man, that's cool, man. Thank you. That was a tool that I got introduced to by a guy named Jake Shannon, either 2004 or 2005, out in California. He was a catch wrestling guy. That's something that I loved and was participating in. So it was kind of I was connecting with him on both those fronts.
Do you want to just describe like what it is?
Oh shit, yeah. So it's essentially a ball on the end of a stick, and
but not a light ball. It's a heavy ball.
Yeah, heavy. Yeah, heavy. It can be up to really heavy. There's a lot of places now that make kind of tinker toy versions of it that are too light to be useful, but the way that we do it is different, and we have the strategy to back it up. And one thing that we did is when I identified what he was doing as insanely valuable, but also really underdeveloped. Indians have used, maces and gatas for a long, long time for their wrestling culture. And you look at those people and they're just like prime physical examples. You can tell that they don't have a lot of equipment, but their physicality is just undeniable. It's phenomenal. And so, of course, wrestling culture here adopted that. Jake was the first one that had put the ball on the end of a stick in quite that way. And no one had kind of retooled it since he had. The company that he was working with stopped making maces. And so there was really no good commercial mace out for quite a long time. And it took me an embarrassingly long time to put a ball on the end of a stick the way it needed to be done. We almost had it on the market in 2011. We were partnered with a company here that ended up just being a bunch of total fucking dick bags. And I mean, they're like, I really don't dislike all that many people these days, but that company just really, really pulled our pants down and really cut us short. We had some good projects in the works, and they just kind of showed their true colors and did a terrible job. Censored us, said some really inappropriate stuff to me. And so the mace kind of sat for a while because we're tiny. I didn't have the money or the resources to do it myself. And so eventually, we had developed protocols and training programs and things like that with the mace, but there was no tool on the market that could help people perform that training. So a couple of years ago, our friend Mark Entenberg, someone we still work with all the time, had kind of this like long shot connection to this local place that might be able to make the entire thing for us. And we investigated it together, and it was not an easy process, but we got it worked out. And now we make maces. We had them. We had a distributor for a while. I'm not going to mention the name, but they dropped us cold in an extremely unprofessional and extremely damaging way. But now that we've got the maces, that we've got the manufacturing place, we're just going to keep plugging away at it. And, I like a lot about them. I like the fact that from a functional standpoint, they're exactly what we want. They suit our training perfectly. And from an aesthetic standpoint, I mean, there's something that will outlast us all. They're made phenomenally well. They're beautiful. Each is made to extremely high standards, but they're all at least a little bit different, even if it's like, the way that they're etched or the way that they're polished or something like that. So every single one of them is a little bit unique, but functionally they're all exactly the same. And we customize them here in New York. It fills a lot of voids to me. I liked making stuff in BMX, and that was something that I missed.
Yeah, I was gonna say you like custom etch each one, don't you?
It's incredible. I did the first few hundred of them, and I am not artistic. I worked really hard, and my
I wouldn't say that, but
my etching prowess did not improve the way that it needed to. And Heather here took over and does. I mean, that's a whole other thing. She's figured out with a single needle Dremel tool how to make these incredible pictures on these aluminum bumpy, often gritty maces. It's the entire project tip to tail is I don't know. It's really something. It's really something. Every time I see one of them, I'm shocked that we were able to pull it off.
That's awesome, man. And people can order those, like if they want to check them out on your website.
They're right on our store. wolfbrigade.com is our website, and we have a pretty thorough store on there. Gigantic movement library, tons of stuff for free. And, we sell maces and ropes and some intelligent soft goods and things like that. But the other thing that we do is we offer a gigantic amount of training for free. And that's again, just sewing the threads from hardcore and BMX. Of course, money is necessary for any business to sustain itself. But I also want people to be able to improve themselves without having to have $1 million or without having to have like a full service gym membership or a ton of background knowledge on fitness and things like that. That stuff's really, really important to me. So that's been our priority in constructing our libraries on our site, and even how we do our Instagram and stuff. I mean, I think we reach more people that aren't into fitness, that are more into critical thinking and mindset and aesthetic than we do even people that want to lift weights.
I wanted to ask you that kind of leads into, I guess it's kind of the elephant in the room. Obviously we filmed last year in 2019, and 2020 has been a little bit of a different year. How have you had to adapt and change in the way you do business?
Well, we haven't. We've always been an extremely responsible, careful facility. Our people are phenomenally respectful, clean. We've changed some cleaning protocols, simple stuff like that. But realistically, we're extremely fortunate that we didn't have to retool any entire systems, because our people are just respectful, clean, good, hardworking, honest people. And we have people from all walks of life. It's not a place where you're going to walk in and find 25, shirtless, six-pack from birth thoroughbreds. We train mostly really, really normal people that are just phenomenal, because we're very, very detailed and we're good at our jobs. We didn't have to change all that much, because people have already such a high standard. If we had to start from scratch with personal responsibility, I mean, we probably would have had to close a lot more. I'm not sure we would have made it, because a lot of places that we respect and a lot of our peers and contemporaries didn't make it. And that's not because they weren't making it. That's because any small growing business forced to close for months on end, very few places are sitting on half a year's worth of expenses in the bank. I mean, that's just not real. Right. I mean, I've worked on and run tiny businesses since I was a kid, and geez, man, I mean, as you're growing, money gets funneled into growth. Very seldom are you just sitting on some giant knot that can cover your ass when things go wrong like that. So we changed what we needed to in order to be responsible, but very thankfully we'd already built the right foundation. We hadn't had to change a lot.
That's great. After seeing the finished doc, do you have any different, and then especially after this last year, since we were together and filming, do you have any different opinions on anything?
Man, I'm not sure if this paints me in a good light or a bad light, but I mean, most of what I say and think, although I'm always open to interpretation and change when it comes up, I've been really, really very similar for a long time. So the stuff that I would be confident enough to say when you were asking questions for the doc, something that I would want people to hear on a repeat basis for a long period of time. I mean, there isn't a lot that I would change there. I think if anything, I think it was necessary and hopefully important to maybe sell the story a little bit. But there's certain things I mentioned that I at some point believe could be expanded on, but nothing that I would have removed or nothing that I would renege or change completely or anything like that. Yep.
Yeah. I had a feeling you'd say that, and I would agree 100%. I think if anything, what came out of you and all the other guys, but especially some of the things you said, I would just double down on, and I would just say it would be even more cemented.
Yeah.
It just I think this past year, the experiences that a lot of us have gone through, you guys all seem to be getting through it, and I think it's because you are doubling down on a lot of the ideas that you shared.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I'll add the asterisk that, and I can't speak for those other guys, but I can very clearly imagine. I mean, it has been for everyone. This has been a giant struggle for us for a lot of reasons that have nothing to do with a virus or a pandemic or anything like that. People's tendencies towards being more irresponsible, more dismissive, less caring towards others. Those things have been more impactful than really any of the other stuff. We've come up on some, and there's really no reason to dig too deep into any of it here, but we've come up on some really unfortunate stuff that's just based on this fear culture that we're in right now. I've been putting out positive messages in a very public way for over 25 years, and I've had important projects derailed by people, just being liars and cowards, and I'm not sure that in a social climate that was stronger and more upbeat and positive that any of that stuff would have landed. But snakes will be snakes, rats will be rats, and I guess hardcore taught me that too.
Yeah. So I mean, like, swinging it in a different direction, anything you're super motivated on right now that like, what's keeping you going, like, other than the typical?
Geez, I almost just laughed right out loud. Honestly, this is exciting. I'm proud of this. I'm proud of the work you did, man. I'm really stoked on it. I think we've talked about this briefly, but I mean, I think culturally, I'm not sure we could have timed it any better. The idea of thinking out your independence and having a strong plan is more important now than it ever has been. Even when it comes to just being your own first response, learn physical skills, make sure you're strong and capable, make sure you know how to use the tools at your disposal. That's the stuff that all of us were saying in our pieces, and I mean, man, that's 10 times more important now. If anything has been proven, it's that no one's looking out for us, and that means we just got to do it ourselves.
Yeah, that's that one. I keep seeing. When I'm looking at some of the footage you had on the wall, I think it's no one's coming. It's up to us. Is that how?
Yeah. There's a couple of brands that say very similar stuff to that, and I mean, it's a really simple statement, but it really is true. And of course, our friends and families are always there for us, and that's important, and we never lose that in the shuffle. But in a big picture way, we're out to sea, and we got to keep paddling.
Dude, I gotta say that line, I know I probably fudged it up or whatever, but fucked it up. I don't know why I'm being PG here, but no, funny. but that line, like, dude, it resonates with me so hard. I wish I realized that years ago, because part of what screwed me over was this thought that I was gonna just if I and I resisted this, and I went back and forth on it. I was like 1 foot in, 1 foot out the whole time. Go with college, like, is what I'm talking about, really. Like,
oh yeah,
and I finally went back even years later, thinking, okay, like, if I just go and get the stupid degree, at least I can get the job if I need it. And that could have been my dog's barking. That could have been further from the truth. Like, there's no guarantees. No one's. Doesn't matter. You can do everything they tell you to do, and in the end, it's not there.
Man, I mean, your statement is true, and if it wasn't true 5 years ago or 10 years ago, it is certainly true now. And I'm not anti-college or anything like that, of course, but I know more than my fair share, and I'm sure just as many, if not more, that did get those tickets punched and did get upside down with debt and all this kind of stuff, and still ended up just having to find their own way and realize that no one's coming.
It's me, exactly.
and realistically, I guess my layperson opinion of that is that it's become such a non-commodity. Education is no longer really even about learning. It's just about ticket punching. And my most personal relationship with that is with graphic designers. I've worked with and groomed graphic designers for 25 years. And It's fascinating that the worst designers I have ever tried to work with are the ones with the biggest degrees.
Yeah.
And it's really, you can't teach that stuff, man. So if someone has an eye for art and they can make art, they can construct with their hands art, then what we would do is we would make sure that they had access to learning the programs that we needed to have the stuff digitally done and moved into those formats. But the reality is they often taught themselves how to do it in a different way than any type of college would have, and it turned out amazing. You know, I mean, you remember all of our artwork at Coalition and early stuff with Hell on Earth. You know, none of that stuff was made by, you know, high level college designers. It was made by feet on pavement artists that were making stuff and painting trains and doing amazing work, that learned how to use computers so that they could work with us doing that. And I think that was a perfect fit. And that's my most personal relationship with the fact that the paper does not dictate the proficiency by any means.
Oh, definitely. And I think for a long time I was pretty anti-college, and I'm not going to say I'm like pro-college, but I think I've come around to realize that, at least this is my current thinking, I think it's more of a tool, you know what I mean? And it's a tool in the toolbox that and I don't think everyone needs it. So it's, you know, it's, if you think of, you know, a painter doesn't necessarily need a hammer, you know what I mean? So I think it could be useful in the right context, but I think it's getting less and less useful for most people.
When I was a kid,
more of a hindrance.
I think sometimes that's the case, because, and it's like when people take out, you know, for a long time, one of the things that was happening was people were taking out these giant loans to open these grandiose CrossFit gyms. They weren't spending any time learning their craft. They weren't spending any time learning how to teach people or anything like that. They were just filling a room with really, really expensive equipment and relying on the eye candy to bring in people. Well, we can all forecast where that went. And a lot of times it's the same. It's the same with what you just said. And I think that the other side of the equation is the people that are willing to kind of look at it as a tool in the toolbox, but understand that it's one of many, are the ones that end up with the best rounded skill set and I guess maybe the most longevity in whatever they choose to do, and have the least pressure because they're not six figures upside down in loans and all else, you know?
Yeah, that's the biggest problem. You get squeezed into living a life you don't want to be in because you feel like you're just stuck.
I mean, I think where I was going for a second there was when I was a kid, I realized that there was things I wanted to learn and improve on, but I didn't really care about a degree. So I went to a community college here, and I took some, you know, like writing courses and things that I had interest in, already had experience in, and I believe had some level of aptitude in. And it was phenomenal. I mean, I met a few professors that were legitimately influential people, and that made it worthwhile. But the idea of being 10 times more in debt to learn a bunch of math and shit that I never would have ever used, it just didn't make any sense to me. And again, you know, your earlier question about what hardcore and BMX have taught me, you know, painting by numbers gets you one particular picture, and it's just never a picture I've wanted to paint.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. You know, one thing that we didn't mention, I think we didn't mention the name of the documentary, but we've been talking about Don't Stand in Line, the docu-series.
Yeah.
It would have been I'm not a professional.
In the title or something.
Yeah. It'll be in there somewhere. This won't be the first you're hearing of it, but this just goes to show, like, you know, I think for me, and maybe you can speak to this, like, personally, I don't think I've ever been, I don't think I've ever just been naturally talented at anything. Like, anytime I try to do anything, I'm usually the worst one trying it. But if I'm into it, if I like it, I keep hammering away, and eventually I think I get decent at it. I think I've got decent at a few things, but you know, I don't know, man. Like, I think that's part of it, is just the persistence and the determination. Like, And I think I picked up a lot of that from just going out in my driveway and trying to figure out how to ollie over a crack in the ground, or like, trying to see if I could bunny hop over a trash can, and or actually even earlier, trying to do a cherry picker in the driveway.
I've seen that. I've seen documentation of that, and you sure have gotten good at some great shit. And of course, man, the persistence and the fall down, get up nature of all this is the most important thing. I mean, if anyone involved in this thing had fallen down and stayed down, well, there wouldn't be a story, It's crucial, and it's unique to all of us in the sense that I mean, in my case, I can speak to particularly, I've fallen down a lot, and you learn a lot, and it takes a toll. In no way am I trying to romanticize it. If I could eliminate some of those failures, I certainly would have, but there's other ones that taught me more than any level of success ever could have. Right. So yeah, that's man, that's a giant piece of the puzzle. And as far as natural aptitudes, I tend to agree with you. Once I started martial arts, I realized that I had some level of physical aptitude towards that, and I credit BMX with that. And it's just durability and persistence. And I think the only thing that I've ever had any sort of natural aptitude at was writing, and that's something I've done since I was a kid. And
yeah, I would say you probably have that.
I'm thankful for that. I've developed it, and I've never taken it for granted. I try every single thing I write, I try and improve some way over a previous thing I've written. But I agree with you that most of the stuff I've done has been hard earned and built on a foundation that I had to earn from something else.
Yeah, it's just for me, it's just brute force, like repetition.
That's right. That's right. Put
you would
on and smash right through it.
You wouldn't even believe the first time I tried to I was on what was I? Oh Jesus. I was on a podcast the other day. The 185 South. And he was talking about Pit of Equality from the 10-year fight demo. And dude, the first time I tried to sing that song in band practice, everyone just stopped and laughed at me. I could not do it to save my life. Couldn't do it. It took me like weeks before I figured out how to get that vocal pattern. If you listen to it, I listen to it now and I'm like, what the hell was wrong with me? Like, it's just so. But it's just one of those things. Like I was terrible at it,
Man, I'm only going to say this because it correlates perfectly with what you're talking about. But I am not trying to compare your amazing, legendary band with anything I've ever done. We tried. Yeah. we tried to cover "Oh You Nothing" by Sheer Terror at one point, and I just straight up couldn't do it right.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's the same way as what you're saying, where you listen to it and you're like, okay, this is like relatively straightforward. Like there's nothing crazy here. There's no singing here. There's nothing, but it was ferocious, and the pace was ridiculous, and the breaks were hard. And I just remember doing it really, really badly and being like, man, fuck this. We're not going to dishonor this epic song. We're just not going to do it.
I had that. Go ahead.
Anyway, that's it.
Yeah. No, I had the same thing happen. We tried to do when I was in Stand and Fight, we tried to do a Uniform Choice song. I forget which one it was, but I would sing it all the time in the car. Like I'm like, I got this. This is easy. And then we'd go to do it, and there was no way. It just was not happening. And there was a few songs over the years where like covers like that. It's just like most of them I was eventually able to get, but it was really hard. And even in the end, like there's some recordings of some covers we did with 10-Year Fight that I hear, and I'm just like, I don't know that I did that justice. Like it's
honestly, man, I don't even know if I want to admit this. We covered a Verbal Assault song, and it just, I had no business even really listening to that song, let alone trying to play it. So I can relate to that, but then again, I don't know, I guess live and learn, right? Hopefully.
Yeah. And then you figure out like, sometimes you're not meant to, I don't know, maybe I'm trying to bring this back around to something meaningful here, but like sometimes you're just not meant to fit in someone else's shoes. You know what I mean? Like
That's
you got to make your own
true,
footprint.
Man. And especially something like hardcore, something like hardcore. Well, to me anyway, it's so much less about the vocal stylings in some level and so much more about the presence and the cadence and the authenticity of it. And I mean, there are certain bands that will never be covered properly.
Ever. Oh, they don't even make sense. You ever try to do a Youth Today's song and sing like Ray Capo? Forget it.
I don't even.
I think what's his name?
Know if I would try to sing that in the car.
Yeah. What's his name from Redemption '87 is probably I forget his name, Eric, I think.
Oh yeah.
Only one who could come close.
Yeah, that's a can of worms. Certain bands should just be untouchable, and that's the end of the story. It's like certain movies, eventually they're going to remake everything, but some things should just be left, man, because they're perfect. Or even maybe they're not perfect, but they're perfect in their imperfection, and sometimes you just shouldn't fuck around with that.
True. So true. Well, let's see. We're coming up on an hour. Is there anything else you want to mention? Or, I mean, obviously plug some stuff, but is anything else you want to talk about or?
Man, I'm so pleased to be involved with this with everybody. Thanks to everybody that did such a great job, and thanks to you for pulling it together and giving us a voice for this stuff. And I really just hope people enjoy it, and I hope it resonates, like more so than just pure unadulterated enjoyment and entertainment, which is what most of us have had too much of a fill of for the last 6 months. I hope this actually resonates and can help some people. And I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's it. I'm just really pleased. With it. I think you did a phenomenal job, and I can't wait to see what people think.
Thanks, man. Thank you. I agree. I really do hope that people get something out of it, meaningful. Hopefully they're entertained as well, but I really want some... I mean,
we did that soft premiere up here, and we showed the first 3 episodes, and it was a big room full of people in the beginning of summer in the event that we have here each year. And man, it went over great. And everybody was like, "Oh, what's next?" Everybody was like compelled by the participants, and it was awesome. It was phenomenally timed because it really made it feel like you were really onto something. And while I knew that, I've been wrong before. I've fallen just totally in love with stuff that people have done, and basically no one else seemed to like it. And I don't think that takes away from it at all. But with something like this, the point is to circulate it. The point is to reach as many good people as we possibly can. And man, seeing it in front of that room full of people, seeing them kind of emotional and kind of compelled, and it showed me that you are onto something. You did a phenomenal job.
That's awesome, and that's great to hear. Hopefully we can do a screening or two. I almost, man, I was like real close to pulling the trigger up here because you can rent the movie theater for like $100 for a couple hours right now. But
what?
You can rent movie theaters up here in my area, and they'll show whatever you want, and it's for like $100 for like 2.5 hours. And I almost did it just to go and sit with my family, just go watch it, But
when are we doing that?
I don't know. I don't know, man.
We can talk about it later.
I know it's the whole.
That's really a thing. That's definitely happening elsewhere, and we can skin that cat when it comes up. But that is a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I was so close to doing it, but I think everyone's just spooked. So I put out a little feeler on Instagram, and I didn't really get any replies. So I don't know, but
we'll pump the brakes on it. But that's a phenomenal idea. Holy cow, that would be super fun. I mean,
like I said, $100 just to watch something I made up on the big screen is fuck it,
My God,
just do it for myself,
Man, I absolutely agree with that. You deserve it for sure.
Be awesome. So just let everyone know where they can find you.
Thanks. Yeah. So wolfbrigade.com is the site for the gym. The mephistogroup.com is the website for all my little dysfunctional brain children over the last 25 years. Warofattrition.com is my writing site. Most of the things that are on that site are also in a paperback book, but the book also has some stuff that isn't on the site. And our Wolf Brigade Instagram is strong. We don't do a ton with social media, but I really prioritize Instagram because it's landed well for us until they started eliminating our access to new people. And those are the places that we're findable. We're also we're good at responding if people have questions and messages about either training or, whatever. We're good about that stuff. We'll never be too big to reply to the people that care about what we're doing. And then, don't stand in line. We'll have links for this in our link tree. You'll find that on Wolf Brigade. We try and interconnect as much stuff as we possibly can because we sincerely appreciate people involving us and getting into what we're doing.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, this is great, man. This was fun. Can't wait for the doc. I hope you guys like it. And again, thank you for putting this together. It's incredible.
Yeah, no, thank you. If you get a chance, please leave us a review in iTunes and Spotify or wherever you're listening to this. It really helps build awareness and it would mean a lot to me. Also, don't forget to check out the 6-part Don't Stand in Line docuseries. You can learn more about it and everything else we're working on at codecprojects.com. That's CODECPROJECTS.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Codec Projects. I also want to mention that I started a Don't Stand in Line Facebook group. If you get a chance, go take a look at that. I really want to develop it as a resource for anyone that's out there trying to do their own thing, whether you're just trying to find a good place to source DVDs or t-shirts, or if you have an experience or a story that you might have that might help someone else along in their journey trying to get out there and do their own thing, please take a look at it and leave some posts and reply and respond, and let's build a community over there. All right, thanks a lot. See you next week.
Go!